Right, now we're going to look at some linear regression problems. Mostly make sure we know how to input the data into the calculator and get the information that we need from the calculator. Okay, so I'm using some data that's given on page 41, example 6. I use slightly different questions than the book has. So this table shows estimates for Medicare costs in billions of dollars for a few different years. Okay, we want to look at this data, sort of plot the data, and then see if it fits a linear model so we can do a linear regression on it. Okay. So notice in this case, since we're working with years 2007 to 2012, we're told to let x equal to 0, or year 0 correspond to 2007. So the first thing I'm going to do is just make sure I understand. So that's going to be year 0. So then 2008 is 1, 2009 is 2, and so on. That just helps us graph a little bit better rather than worrying about x inputs in the 2000s. Our x inputs are going to be 0 to 5. And then we have y outputs from 432 to 591. Okay. So again, most of the work is going to be done in the calculator. There's a couple different TI-84s floating around, so I'm going to show you a couple things here. But for this one, this is probably the 84 calculator, 83, that most people will be using. Okay. So the first thing we have to do is put in the data. So that's under Stat. Okay, so the Stat button. We have Edit, Calculate, and Test across the top. First, we need to edit the list. Then when we need to actually make the calculation of the linear regression line, we'll use the second menu. Okay, but to just input data, we have to edit. Okay, and it'll bring us right to these lists. Now, I have some old data in there, you might also, that I want to get rid of, okay, before I put in the new data. Okay, so instead of deleting all the entries one by one, you can just go to the top, highlight the L2, hit clear and enter, and then it wipes out the whole column a little bit quicker. And again, you could delete each one one at a time. To delete the whole column, go up on the top, hit clear, and then hit enter. Okay. So again, we're going to put, not to get things messed up too much, we're going to always put our x data in L1 and our y data in L2. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for our x inputs. We go over, and again, you just have to make sure you're lined up. So the first one is 432, 467, 500, 525, 558, and 591. Okay, just make sure you hit enter on that last one. Okay, so again, just to put the data in, let me just quit for a second here. That's Stat and Edit, and then it takes you to the tables. Okay. Now the first question here is to make a scatter diagram. So you just want to plot the points. So we're going to again let the calculator do that for us. Okay. So again, let me just get out of here. So second quit always takes you back to the home screen. Okay. So we're going to do a stat plot. So notice that's the second function from the y equals. So we'll do second. Well, we're only doing one, so I'll just take the first one. Okay, notice right now it's off. So we hit enter, it'll take us into there. First thing we need to do is switch it to on. Okay, everything else we'll probably leave alone. The first type is just the points, which is what we want. We don't want to connect them. We don't want to make a bar graph or anything. So we're going to leave it here. And again, it's always nice to have your x list in L1, your y list in L2, because then that's already filled in for you. Okay, and again, I like the little squares as a mark. Okay, now if I hit graph right now, I don't think it'll work because I have no idea what window I'm in. Okay, so I see a little bit. Okay, now that's a weird line. Not sure where that came from. That may happen to you. Notice I had an old graph in there. So let me either delete this or turn it off, but I'll just clear it out. Okay, now notice our plot's on. Okay, but again, if I hit graph, I'm not going to see anything because I don't have a good window. Okay, window's easy to fix though, right? I see my data right here. So my x's, I want to go from about 0 to 5. I'm going to put a little buffer on there. So I'm going to go -1 to maybe 7. My y's go from 432 to 591. So I'll go maybe 400 to 600. So count by 20s. And then you can see it. Okay. So again, you often need for data to fix your window, but since you have the data right in front of you, the x min max and y min max should be pretty quick to find. Okay. The points do seem to fall in about on a line. So again, for part B then, we want to find that linear function. Okay. So we want to find the line, they're not a perfect line, but we're going to find the line of best fit. Okay, so again, let me just quit to go back to the home screen. Okay, so again, we do stat. Our data's already in there, so we go over to calculate, and you'll see linear regression somewhere in there. Okay, so it's just going to give you back a line in AX plus B4. Okay, so hit enter. It's ready to go. Now again, as long as your data is in list 1 and list 2, you'll be in good shape. Okay, so if I just hit enter, I get this. I'm going to write this down. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of rounding here. Okay, so it is giving me y equals ax plus b. Here's my a, here's my b. Okay, so for my linear function, I have y equal to a, which is 31.2. I'll just round to the nearest tenth, x, plus b, which is 434.1. Again, rounded to the nearest tenth. Okay. If I now want to graph that to see how that fits, okay, then I just type it in as my y equal to function, 31.2x is 434.1. I put in y2, but it could be either one. And we can see that that line actually does fit the data pretty well. Okay. So just coming back here for a second. So we made the scatter diagram. What type of function? And again, they seem to fall in a line. So it'd be a linear function that would seem to work. We found that linear function that models the data and graphed it. Okay. Now we are asked to interpret the slope. Okay. We can see from our function, right, that our slope is 31.2. Okay. Remember, that's change in y over change in x. So in this case, it's the change in costs per year. Okay. So this is the, I would say, increase per year. Keep in mind, this is in billions of dollars. Okay. Now it says use f of x, which I have right here, to estimate the cost in 2015. Now again, be careful. We have to figure out what 2015 is. So if we had come back here and had 2015 in our table, right, that's 3 more years. So that would have been year 8. Okay. So if I want to know 2015, I want to know what happens when x is 8 for the year 2015. So y would equal 31.2 times 8 plus 434.1. I'll dump that in my calculator. Again, just going back to the home screen here. So 31.2 times 8 plus 434.1. And I get about 683.7. Remember, this is billion dollars. Okay. All right, and maybe we'll just run through one more. Oh, here's a good important note, since it didn't show up on mine. When calculating, the regression line, sometimes we're asked for R, which is called the correlation coefficient. Okay. If you remember, when I did mine, I'll just pull that up again. Remember, that's stat calculate, the linear regression. There's no R there. Okay, so you have to set up your calculator to do that. If we do it once, you shouldn't have to do it again. Okay, but you should know how to do it in case you're not using your own calculator. Okay. So again, to turn that R on, you're going to go down to catalog, which is second 0. So you go to second 0. We need to turn what's called diagnostics. So I'm going to skip down to D. And I want to turn the diagnostics on. Again, it should stay on then from this point forward. There it is. So I hit enter. It's ready to turn it on, so I turn it on. So now when I do stat, calculate my linear regression, same thing. Notice it gives me R. The closer R is to 1, this one's very close, the better the data fits. And that makes sense because our line was very close to the data. Okay. All right. So I'm going to do the second one just with a slightly different calculator, but most of it will look the same. Okay. But you might have this one. So just kind of in case you see this. Okay. So again, this is advertising revenue for Google. So we're going to take this table. Now we are given again here that year 0 should correspond to 2005. So this will be year 0. Now keep in mind this then is year 2. It's 2 years out. 4, 6. Okay. So again, we go to stat, edit, and you can see I already in fact have my data in there. Okay, so my X values, my years 0246, and the revenue in dollars is 617 2337. Okay, we make a scatter diagram. So again, I'm going to set my I'm going to fix my window first. So hit window. Again, I need to go from 0 to 6 for my X inputs. Just put a little buffer on there, so it goes -1 to 8. Y's go from 6 to 37, so I'm going to start at 0 and maybe go up to 40, counting by tens. Okay. Now again, I'm going to hit graph. Actually, I need to hit my stat plot. So first of all, I'm going to go to Y equal. There's nothing in there. Okay. Notice I could also go up to plot 1 this way. Okay. So I'm going to hit that. Okay. Remember the other way to get that, remember, was second Y equals. Okay. So it's on. That's what happened when I did it on the other one. This looks a little bit different maybe in this operating system, but you can see essentially everything's about the same. It just gives me an option for colors. So I graph and I see my graph. I'm actually going to switch the color, I think. I'm not sure how well you can see that. So let me go back to stat plot. Maybe instead of blue, I'll choose black. A little easier to see. Okay. And again, it's not a perfect line. Okay, so when we do find the regression line, I'm guessing the R won't be quite so close to 1. Okay. But we'll do that. So again, stat, calculate, linear regression. And again, this looks a little bit different. But again, the idea is before it was assuming list 1, list 2. If you had the other calculator, it's a little bit more complicated to change it. Here it would be a little bit easier. Okay, but you just arrow down until you get to calculate and hit enter. Okay, notice R is not there. Okay, I'm going to turn my diagnostics on again. But let me write this down. So my linear function, f of x, again is ax plus b, which is 4.95x plus b is 5.9. Okay. Again, if I don't have that R and you need it, you have to get down to catalog, all right, which is second 0. And then you can arrow down to D. Also keep in mind you could just hit this where the green letter D is. That'll jump you down to the D's a little quicker. And then I turn my diagnostics on. And that's done. And so now again, if I did my stat, calculate my linear regression again, I also get my R. It's still pretty good, but not quite as good as it was before. Sorry. Okay. And now again, we're going to use this function to estimate the revenue in 2015, which means we have to figure out what year 2015 is. So if I were going to put 2015 in my table, right, that's 4 more years out. So that's year 10. So I have f of 10, which is 4.95 times 10 plus 5.9. Grab my calculator for that. So about 55.4. Remember, again, this is in billions of dollars. Again, keep in mind the slope here. I skipped that part. Slope is 4.95. Again, that's an increase. It's rise over run. It's positive. So it's the increase in revenue per year. Again, keep in mind it's advertising revenue in billions of dollars.